Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dave Coates from the National Safety Training Center here with episode 5 of the Life-Saving Chronicles. We have a special guest, Mr. Stephen Murphy. We're going to talk about lifeguarding at water parks. Steve, tell us all about yourself.
Well, for having me on board, and what is there to say? I've been in aquatics 14 years. I started off as a lifeguard in my late 30s, and then just slowly worked my way through the path I've been on without any real goal in mind other than to have a summer job. I've been a head lifeguard, supervisor, instructor, lived in Stargard, done some Ellis, 4 years of that. But my main home is American Red Cross, so I'm currently a lifeguard instructor trainer and also a water safety instructor trainer. Currently the owner and operator of MATES, or Missouri Aquatics Training and Education Solutions. We've been around since 2021, and we basically travel around and train people, very much like you do with your organization. Before all that, I did 6 years total in the Army and then the Army National Guard. I went to Operation Desert Storm. I don't recommend that. You can avoid going, but yeah, definitely people were like, wow, couldn't you have chosen not to go? The Army doesn't work that way. They do not ask you where you want to go. I did 6 years total. I have a bachelor's and master's in history, and so I teach as an adjunct instructor of history at a local community college, which is how it is I needed to get into aquatics anyway, because usually there's no summer classes to teach. And the one time I taught, the whole time I'm standing in the classroom just looking out the window going, and my students didn't want to be there either. And I thought, no, the universe is talking to me. I've done a lot of different things, and right now I consider myself to be part-time everything. Part-time this, part-time that.
Well, so let's dive into the first part of kind of our subject today, which is the difference between lifeguarding at a typical pool facility and lifeguarding at a water park. You've done both, so I'm interested to see how you compare and contrast those. So how about the in-service training aspect? Do you see a difference in the amount and level of training at water parks versus a town municipal recreation facility?
That all depends on the leadership team. All the water parks I've been at, they usually try to strive to maintain the minimum 4 hours and encourage more than that. Training quality can vary depending upon culture at any given facility. That's been my experience. That's the same whether it's a water park or a regular standard issue aquatics facility. One thing that's distinctive about water park training is you have to have pretty much everything that's in the water park module for the American Red Cross. You have to know how to execute a proper extrication out of a wave pool. It's not take them up the wall, because most wave pools, you're not taking them up the wall. Even if they're dried, the rails are slick with suntan oil and everything. It's a high edge on steroids. So you're not going up the wall. That means you're swimming them out to the zero depth, and then hopefully if your team is on track, sometimes it's not the case, they meet you with the backboard and then you extricate, and then things turn out okay. And usually if they're going to training, most people who are working those facilities, they're aware of what the emergency
is. The wave pool the single most popular? I'm trying to say in terms of where the risk is.
I mean, at the first one that I worked at, yeah. To give you a comparison, I can't name the facility by name, but for a lot of reasons. But in 2016, when I was the lead of the wave pool there, the facility had 800 saves that summer. Now, not all those were wave pool saves. Saves happened in other parts of the park. I want to be clear about that. One of these beads is a non-wave save. But
so we're going to talk about those beads in a second. I know the meaning. I don't think everybody does, and it's a very valuable, I don't want to say lesson, but it's a very valuable source of motivation for people. Just focusing on the risk parameters. Wave pool clearly being the most risky. What's number 2?
Slide. Water slide. Kind of water slide. Whether it has a raft in it or not, whether it's small or not, whether it's a powered slide, like a drop slide. Those are the ones where you get into basically a telephone booth, and then there's a countdown, and then they drop the floor out from under you. I do not like those. I won't ride them. I will, if it needs to be test ridden, I will. The only time I will ride them is for or if there's injuries happen. Then I'll climb it reluctantly, because I'm like, hey, I'm not getting my own people hurt. But drop slides can be a problem sometimes, although not usually they're more malfunction prone. They won't launch. So the safety feature will prevent somebody from going somewhere.
So for the water slides, and at least the ones I've seen that caused me the most concerns were the ones that ended with a significant drop at the end of the ride.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh.
now you had a significant drop. You're in deep water. You're probably disoriented. Is that your experience as well?
It's not even just with those, but also with the ones that are closer to the surface. Because sometimes what happens is the individual will come off the slide. This happens to older people usually. And what will happen is that the head will drop and then the lower body will rotate. And I like to call it the washing machine or the Maytag. And they'll literally start to tumble and they'll get disoriented. I had a rescue of it was World War II veteran, and this is a great lesson on, hey, identify yourself when you come in behind him. I went down and I grabbed him and I hauled him up because he was doing the Maytag, and the moment he got his feet under him, I almost got a meat hammer right to the face. I managed to get out of the way. I was like, hey, I'm a lifeguard. Hey, take it easy. He felt so bad. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. That slide was really, and that one, the slide was pretty flush with the surface of the water. But yeah, the higher it is, the depth, the speed that you're yeeted into the water, if that's a technical term, all those things can be factored.
Got it. So just looking at water parks in general, have any of the parks that you've worked at served alcohol?
Yes.
Was that a significant factor in either the type or the quantity of rescues?
Usually people who were really intoxicated did not make their way to the wave pool. They would go there, but they would stay in the shallow. So they would not go out too deep. I can't recall a single time that I jumped in and got somebody and was like, whew, man, they've been working over there at the swim-up bar. Usually they just like to hang out at the swim-up bar, drink way too much, and hit on the guard, which is its own problem. But they're not in the 8-foot section of the wave pool falling off a tube and then causing problems that way.
So, Steve, you're saying they were hitting on you?
No comment. That's a whole other podcast.
We have to keep it PG.
I was going to say, my wife's in the other room. She told me she'd come in here if she didn't like what she heard.
And you have a new wife.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I've been married for a little over a year now. We got married March 25th, 2023. That was the day after I completed Water Safety Instructor Trainer Academy. Oh, yeah, thanks. She was not...
Which, by the way, is how we got introduced.
Yeah.
The educator that you took your WSI Academy with is a good friend of mine. That I used to be an educator, so we used to teach together. She alleged that we may be twins.
I mean...
Okay, it's possible. It's possible.
If I wore a red shirt, you tell me. There you go.
I don't know if there's anything else to discuss necessarily about water parks and what makes them different. Clearly, if they have a wave pool, they're going to have some deep area. The typical recreation department has either a 10 to 12-foot pool, maybe a diving board. Do the water parks that you have experience with have those type of things?
The first wave pool that I guarded used to have a maximum depth of 8 feet, but it was retrofitted after I left. This was on the drawing board to retrofit, by the way, so nothing necessarily prompted the retrofit, but it's been retrofitted, my understanding, to 6 feet. They've also changed their policies. It used to be you could go out in an inflatable. They got rid of the inflatables. Now they require you to do a height check. Now they require you, if you're under a certain height, to put on a jacket whether you want to be or not. And that's a whole other fun experience as a guard to have. But my kid can swim. We're trying to maximize our chances so that we don't have to have the why am I filling out the Saver Port conversation. They've also changed the dynamics of the waves in that facility. Now, the second water park that I worked at that had a wave pool, more dynamic wave capability. In fact, the first time I jumped into it for training, I was like, wow, this is a lot rougher than I anticipated when I got in. I had to work a little bit, but it was 5 feet maximum depth and then very much smaller. So I would often see things in that pool that at the previous one, I'd be like, oh, in about 30 seconds, I'm going to have to go in and fish this one out. But usually at that other pool, they were close enough to safety that they could save themselves. That was about 80% of the saves that I got at the first one. It wasn't that they didn't know how to swim. It wasn't that they didn't know they were in trouble. They all knew they were in trouble, that they would be on approach to safety and they would pass out. And they would start to, and usually you'd scan over them like 3 times. I would actually bookmark them with my knife hand as I'm scanning. because it was an Ellis facility and require that. No more on that than necessary. And then the moment I reached a point, I'd be like, up, yeah, they're vertical. If they can't see, then I would go.
Off we go.
Yeah, yeah. Fun.
So I think we covered most of the differences between traditional recreation pools and the water parks. And they're both cool. You're not always going to go to a water park as a kid. You're probably going to spend more time at your local pool. And it's just an extra fun thing. There's more fun stuff to do there, a little more exciting. But there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and you alluded to it earlier, was your necklace, the beads.
Right.
Now, I know it was started by the folks over at Ellis, which is a certifying agency like the American Red Cross. Tell us about the beads and why they're used.
Well, this particular bat, a lot of facilities have color-coded beads. The only color-coded beads on this lanyard that mean anything other than the rest of them are the brown one and the red one. The red one's clearly first aid, and the brown one is for AFRs, or for the number 2 that you have to fish in.
Code brown.
Yeah. Now, clearly, I'll be honest with you, I probably have a lot more of these on here, but they came up with those for the ones that were not wave pool people who are not jumping in all the time, and that's fair because it's a dirty job. Hey, and now I'm tangled up in my neck. We'll just hang on to that. But the rest of these, they're all safe, every last one of them. And for me, it would take me a moment to figure it out. But each one of these strings is by year, so I know that one of these is my first year, one of them's my second year. This one here, I can tell it's my last year because I started putting straight up blue ones on there to represent the fact that I'm pulling people out of the water. I'm also making fewer saves because I'm not on stand as much. So anyway, but yeah, other facilities have color-coded beads based upon what it is that you're doing to earn them and that sort of thing. So I've worked at other facilities where there'll be beads for guard of the month. There'll be beads for guest compliment or above and beyond and that sort of thing. And although I've never worked at a place that does it, there are some places to where if you get the bead, you can turn it in, you can redeem it for a goodie. And I'm like, I know me. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, food? I'm about that. And I'm that way now. So I'm like, food? Yeah.
So we've talked about this, I think, on a couple other shows, and we may talk about it more, how to motivate teenage lifeguards. I assert that I think you're going to agree that a lot of teenage male lifeguards are motivated by food. If you say, listen, if you do a great job tonight, we'll get pizza for the crew. All right, we're in. Let's get it done.
At least get you a box of uncrusted, whatever that thing is.
If that's what it takes. As a manager, bring on the Uncrustables. I'm thinking that this year for the ladies, we may start doing some custom Stanleys.
Oh, hey, there you go. You got the budget. You got the budget for it.
Maybe they're knockoff Stanleys. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever it is, managing young people in general, volunteers even, whether it's a volunteer fire department, it's understanding who your staff is and what motivates. If they need a T-shirt, if you give them a T-shirt and they're all excited, I got a T-shirt, fantastic. Give them T-shirts. If they need a pizza, figure out what motivates that particular crew. It's generally not expensive. It's not complicated. These kids are pretty simple. We know what they want. Give the people what they want. There was a song like that, right?
There must be. I'm sure there is. Yeah, I'm all aboard with that. I'm all aboard with throwing all the food at them that you can. Don't have a problem with that.
Could we give them healthy food? Sure. Do they want a broccoli shake? No, they want ice cream.
They're usually doing enough protein shakes and fruit frapple what's-its and whatever. We don't need to.
SpongeBob popsicles it is.
Besides, as many steps as I got at the water parks that I worked at, one day I averaged 12 miles going around.
Wow.
And I would sometimes average 6 to 8 whenever I was just in a pure guard position at those places. That's when it's, yes, I can eat whatever I want, and I'm still going to lose weight.
Listen, Steve, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I do believe we are twins. We're related somewhere. Sooner or later, we're going to teach a class together.
Hey, even better. Yeah, for sure. Be up for that.
To everyone else, again, thank you for watching episode 5 of the Lifesaving Chronicles. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, and I think our producer, Michelle, is working on some other venues as well. For me, it's Dave Coates from National Safety Training Center. I hope to see you in class.